All right, so now let me get back to the meeting. You're right about that, Baba, and it's not switching it at all, so I don't know what to tell you. I told oh man. Here we go. Okay. All right, folks.
You live on Facebook.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. This is Baba Mosi Maximo. On with you this evening with the Woodson Banneker Jackson Bay Division 330 RC 2020 UNIA-ALC. We're here this evening to do our Freedom Friday Forum for March 24th, 2023. And of course, this is on a subject matter that is on everybody's tongue these days. It's a very important matter, and we do have to bring it forward. I guess not just on one program, but on several programs. Everyone in the Black world, we need to be discussing this because it's a serious matter. Now, this evening, we have as our guest, Mama Kibibi Tyehimba, and he's going to be the presenter on what's going on today, what's happening, what's the new word when it comes to reparations. Now, there are a lot of people on here today as well. What? Oh my God. Oh, sorry about that. I have to keep certain things away from me. Okay, so now we are going to open with the UNIA-ACL. You know, we do have a pledge that we do normally, and we're going to open this evening with a couple of things. That is the pledge to the flag, the RBG, UNIA flag, as well as the preamble of the Constitution of the UNIA-ACL. Pledge to the flag. I commit my body, mind, and spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, black, and green. I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and the liberation of our scattered Black children. I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism, and I promise that our children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people, in order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail, until all Black people are free and united through one God, one aim, one destiny. The preamble of the Constitution of the UNIA-ACL. The Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League is a social, friendly, humanitarian, charitable, educational, institutional, constructive, and expansive society, and is founded by persons desiring to the utmost to work for the general uplift of the Negro peoples of the world. And the members pledge themselves to do all in their power to conserve the rights of their noble race and to respect the rights of all mankind, believing always in the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. The motto of the organization is one God, one aim, one destiny. Therefore, let justice be done to all mankind, realizing that if the strong oppresses the weak, confusion and discontent will ever mark the path of man. But with love, faith, and charity towards all, the reign of peace and plenty will be heralded into the world, and the generations of men shall be called blessed. Okay, that was the preamble, and that was our opening ritual. Now, as quickly as possible, so that I don't touch anything, cause a problem for myself here, technically that is. Let me go to my good sister, Mama Kibibi, Tyehimba, who is our presenter this evening. Greetings, my sister.
Greetings, Baba. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you quite clearly.
Okay, and do you have my PowerPoint slide, Baba?
That's in the hands of Mama Tendai, and she will be helping me out here this evening.
Oh, and we'll be sharing the screen?
Yes, I'll be sharing the screen, Mom.
Yes.
Okay.
As you tell me to go forward.
That's what I thought we were going to have to do. And greetings, everyone. And I want to thank you all very, very much for inviting me this evening. It's been a while since I've done these kinds of things. But I'm happy to be on here with you.
Mama Kibibi, I must give a little introduction of you, because I know a lot of people know you, but I don't know if everybody on hand here knows you that well. So let me give you a little background on you. Kibibi Tyehimba is the current co-chair of the DC Metropolitan Area chapter of the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, for short NCOBRA, and served in that capacity from 2001 to 2010. She served as female co-chair of National NCOBRA for 5 years, from 2005 to 2010, and also served as co-chair of the National Legislative Commission prior to her tenure as national co-chair. In December 2007, she was the first to testify on the just demand for reparation for the descendants of formerly enslaved Africans in America before the Congress Judiciary Committee, chaired by Congressman John Conyers. Welcome again, Mama Kibibi, and sorry to have interrupted you like that.
And thank you so much. And so that history that you gave is years old, but I still try to stay connected to this very, very important struggle.
Okay.
And I think that everyone has seen, particularly over the last, I'd say since the end of 1919, a tremendous uptake, or an uptick rather, in the reparations movement. And because of the work that Black Lives Matter was putting in shortly after the atrocities that took place with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, we know that things really took off, particularly during the COVID, when we had no other choice but to sit quietly and totally comprehend what was going on around us, what was breaking down around us, and what we needed to do as a people to move forward. So I'd like to go to the next slide, Mama Tendai.
We don't see any slides. At least I don't.
That sounds like Mama Nikiti.
Mama Tendai. Okay, here we go.
Okay, if we can go to the next slide. I know that we are at odds with these various systems that we find ourselves living under, but some of them we have to keep in the forefront as we move forward. And so I wanted to start out, first of all, by speaking to the fact that the United Nations General Assembly presently broadly views reparations as compensation given for an abuse or injury that can include cessation and assurance of non-repetition, restitution and repatriation, compensation, satisfaction, and rehabilitation. And that is important as we move forward through this briefing, because as you all know, more and more emphasis in the media is being placed on the check. Things have changed since we started this process. We knew that monetary compensation would be included, but we also knew, or most people knew, or elders knew at least, that the atrocities that we live under cannot be taken care of by money alone. And that is what is very, very important now. Next slide. So for African descendants, the demand for reparations, once again, we knew needed to include something more. We knew that we had to speak of the era of enslavement and its continuing vestiges. We knew that for 246 years of slavery and upwards of 150 years of Jim Crow, what we call the continuing legacy even up to today, we know that what is going to be necessary to heal us must be multifaceted and multi-generational. We also know that the important thing is to make our people whole, and money alone is not enough. Next slide, please. There are 3 legacy organizations that are making the demand within the United States. In COBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, which was founded in 1987 here in Washington, D.C., has been the only organization whose mission is solely on achieving reparations. And we have attempted to represent African descendants in ways that would encourage them to trust us. They knew that we would not betray them. They knew that we were trying to move farther than the talented 10th, let's say. Those who we knew were truly injured, we were trying to give voice to them at all costs, and we continue to do that. In COBRA's platform for reparations has included peoplehood and nationhood, because we knew that having been brought away from our home on the continent, we had lost so much potential. We had lost an understanding of ourselves and who we were and who we are and what makes us different than the Europeans that were pillaging the earth. We knew that this was important in the process of healing us. We had to bring ourselves back to a point where we could trust one another again, where we could understand the potential that we have, not only in this country, but wherever we find ourselves in the world. We also knew that education would be an important part of whatever was going to be needed to heal and repair ourselves. We knew that we would need to look at our own independent schools, because we could not necessarily expect those who had colonized us, those who had enslaved us, to give us the kind of education that we know that we would need in order to empower ourselves. We understood wealth and poverty. Wealth and poverty is very, very important, but wealth can be achieved in many different ways. But we knew that we needed those funds in order to deal with what is necessary. We also knew that health-wise, we were going to need a tremendous amount of support there because over the decades of being, over the years, hundreds of years of being in this country, and presently, we understand that we have been harmed to the point where our DNA has now shown that we are having the highest incidence of every disease that you can imagine. Lots of them autoimmune diseases and disorders because of the stress that we have found ourselves under. We also knew that political prisoners was an important part because those of us over the decades who were fighting for self-determination, who confronted these systems wherever they found themselves, raised their voices and spoke truth to power because they knew that what we were living under was unjust. And so many of them were imprisoned, and many of them still remain in prison after 4 decades, some. And so we have always called for the release of political prisoners. An additional legacy organization, the National Association for the Reparations Commission, includes apology, repatriation, land, funds for development, health and wellness, education, housing and wealth, information and communication, sacred sites, sacred burial sites, criminal justice systems. All of those things have been offshoots of the efforts that NCOBRA put forward for all those decades when we were on the front line by ourselves. Another legacy organization, CARICOM, addresses the reparations demands of the Caribbean. And they have been in the forefront now. And their platform includes full apology, repatriation, land, funds for development, health and wellness, education, housing and wealth generation, information and communications, infrastructures, sacred sites as well, and criminal justice systems. So you can see with those 3 legacy organizations, how our efforts, how our strategies converge. Next slide. The momentum for reparations has certainly increased. Presently, there are more Black-led groups that have added reparations to their platforms, particularly since COVID. Alliances with academia, attorneys, faith-based institutions are now coming on board. And there has been increased support from civic and other allied groups as well as we are moving forward. Next slide. The diagram here, I've got the circle reparations. That is at the federal level. And you can see over to the right where I'm focusing on 3 categories of the initiatives that are taking place now. We are seeing an increase in one state that is looking at, that has passed a bill, AB 3121 in California, and they are looking towards implementation presently. But there are also cities across the country that have put forth task force bills to look at reparations in their own areas in order to address inequalities. Compensation has also been going to the descendant advocacy groups that are directly impacted. We saw in California where the family who had been cheated out of their land, beachfront property, in Los Angeles were compensated for that because they had proof that they owned that land, and they had proof that the city had overstepped, let's call it, using eminent domain and things of that nature in order to take their land from them. And so they were compensated for that. And we're also seeing that reparations are being paid to descendants of enslaved, those formerly enslaved who are owned by universities. Georgetown is an example of that, where their ownership of enslaved Africans enabled them during a time of need to sell those property, quote, so that they could gain access to the income that they needed. And so they have approved a reparations demand there. We also have seen other universities who have come to terms with the fact that their endowments included enslaved Africans. And so there have been efforts to address some of those as well. But there is a raging debate, and that focus is only so far, in most cases, to close a wealth gap, as if that is going to be sufficient to address our injuries. There is a debate on who is entitled to receive reparations. There is a debate on how eligibility will be determined. And should the injured be responsible for proving eligibility? In COBRA's position is that, first of all, closing the wealth gap alone without attention being paid to the systems and institutions that made slavery possible in the first place, and who are all coming forward into today with their feet on our necks if we are not willing to fight to make those feet get off our necks. We know that closing a wealth gap alone, those other components are also very, very important. And COBRA's position has also been that if you look at the conditions that African people live under in this country, regardless of whether you are formerly enslaved and you can trace your lineage back to an era during that period, we know that we have situations where Amadou Diallo and Abner Louima, no one was asking them whether they were continental Africans or whether they were African Americans. They are having to address the same systems and institutions. And so depending on how long African descendants who have come from other countries, who have lived in this country for decades, depending on how long, they have had to contend with the same level of injustices as we all have. We have also taken the position that eligibility is not possible for all of us. My family, as an example, has done a tremendous job with tracing our lineage, and we have been able to do that. However, others may not have been able to do that. And so should they be left out of the equation? And COBRA's position is that they should not. We've also stated that since the average African descendant cannot prove this eligibility, who is going to be responsible for that? And what are their ulterior motives during the process? Those are all the issues that we have to address when we come to look at this. Next slide. But there's a rapid growth that is taking place because of these issues that are being brought forward. And we're seeing that there are growing pains that we are experiencing. As more and more organizations come online with reparations included in their platform, as more and more young people are exposed to the discussion of reparations, then they are coming forward. And as we did during the 60s, where we thought that our parents were moving too slow in all the decades that they had been given to address civil rights in our minds, we shot forward and surpassed all of that when we looked at the development of SNCC and other issues. So we too, at one point, were dealing with generational pains from going from our parents' generation to ours. And so there is no difference with this situation. But there is a rapidly changing landscape while having younger people trying, of course, and appropriately, to have a stronger voice. There is a changing landscape because their approach is different. Their willingness or their desire to step past a lot of the efforts that have been put place in the past. And as we know, if you do not know your history well, you will repeat it. And that means all of the unjust situations that we've come out from under, all of the attempts that did not behoove us with trying to change our conditions, all of the situations where COINTELPRO and the like could come into our communities and pit us against each other. We know that if you do not know that past, then going forward where you are just okay with looking at a check, then there is danger that is afoot. There is also a slippery slope that is taking place where we are seeing ordinary public policy matters being pulled under a reparations umbrella. We saw the same thing in the 70s. We know with affirmative action, where there was an attempt to say that what was being proposed was going to rectify the conditions that African Americans had been living under. But in fact, everyone but African Americans benefited from that, and predominantly white women. So we certainly don't want to have another situation where we are repeating that kind of history. So it is important that moving forward, as we encounter more and more reparations task force bills being introduced across the country, if you happen to live in a jurisdiction that is considering reparations task force bills, read the fine print, understand whether it is in fact reparations or whether it is the ordinary public policy mumbo jumbo. We also know, particularly in these days and times, we are dealing with the radical right wing. And we know that this is a critical issue because as we are moving forward with organizing for reparations, in some states, even the discussion about our history is illegal. And so we know that it is making our struggle harder, but it is still something that we should not move away from. We should continue to move forward. This is particularly important when you look at the District of Columbia, because we know that any reparations task force that comes from the district has unfortunately got to be reviewed and approved by the House of Representatives. And we know that getting something past the House of Representatives at the present time is impossible. Next slide, please. So there are a couple of US reparations initiatives that I wanted to talk about. We spoke earlier about the California State Bill, AB 3121, where the implementation process is pending. We also know that Evanston, Illinois, the first city in the United States to approve reparations, is moving forward. Excuse me. Their first round was, I believe, a $25,000 monetary amount, but it also includes access to mortgages, because it is the perception that increasing wealth requires that you own land or property of some kind, because that is what has propelled other groups far ahead, where their wealth amount far exceeds ours. There are presently 28 states that have adopted resolutions that are supporting HR 40. All of the places around the country, there are some states that are so right-wing, getting anything out of it is going to be virtually impossible. But we went through several cycles where we looked at some cities adopting resolutions to at least support the passage of HR 40. There were some cities and states that looked at adopting resolutions so that any corporation that was coming forward to obtain federal contracts, they had to go through their records to look to see if they had benefited in any way from the enslavement of African people. Those were all stages that we went through. And we are now, once again, seeing more and more task force bills coming online. And that is increasing almost daily. For the District of Columbia, just recently, Councilman Kenyon McDuffie introduced AB 25, and I believe that was on February 28th. He's also anticipating hearings around Juneteenth time. And once again, take time to read those bills, take time to understand the ins and outs of it, so that you can hopefully look towards giving testimony during that period, so that once again, what will potentially come out of that in terms of a reparations approach is really going to meet the needs of African descendants who live in the District of Columbia. Next slide, please. Developing a critical mass for reparations is absolutely critical if we are going to move forward. And that's why the title of my presentation was Reparations Now, if we're willing to fight for it. If we join hands and if we develop alliances, this can be done. If we link arms with Black-led community-based grassroots initiatives that are addressing African descendants and can legitimately fit under that umbrella, we should join hands whenever we can. When you are aligning, when you are expressing unity and solidarity, you don't have to agree on every point, because African people are not monolithic. And so we aren't necessarily going to have common ground on everything, but there is common ground. There are few human rights or civil rights or self-determination organizations that cannot legitimately fall under this umbrella. And of course, we know that any activism in the United States has a global impact. Next slide. On the global front, the strongest organization is CARICOM, CARICOM Reparations Commission, which has a 10-point plan that we went over earlier. And this unifies and strengthens Caribbean countries and their demand for reparatory justice. It also fuels the efforts of their descendants who are scattered in the UK and in the EU. And of course, with there being close collaboration with other US reparations legacy organizations, this is where we get our power. This is how we move forward. Looking at global successes, the demand for the return of sacred ancestral remains and artifacts are bearing fruit. And we are very pleased about that. One of the strongest advocates about the return of sacred objects in the US, Deidre Farmer Paleman, is continuing to work with African countries to make this happen. And so we are very pleased about that. We also know, I believe in 2021, that Germany agreed to pay $1.2 billion to Namibia. There has been the US movement for Black lives that resonated globally, and it has increased the criminal justice activism. We're also seeing Ghana's acceptance for repatriation for diasporan Africans. And those who had been living in Ghana for several decades have been given citizenship. And we're hoping that other African countries move forward similarly. I'm emphasizing these issues because our demand for reparatory justice, our demand for self-determination, our demands, whether we are in the United States, whether we find ourselves in the EU, whether we find ourselves in the UK or on the continent, they are all the same. We were all brutalized by the same power structures. And we need to move forward, and we can move forward, particularly when we lock arms. We saw that capability when we were looking at the anti-apartheid movement. It is no different now. There has always been a cross-fertilization, if you will, of almost like a volleyball game across the oceans. Whatever is created in the United States with our activism fuels what is going on the continent of Africa and vice versa. And so we must once again understand our power is with unity, and we can move forward. And I think that that's it. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mama Kibibi. That was an awesome presentation. And I'm sure it has developed some questions in the minds of some of the folks active with us here this evening. I say active because it like you say, it will take activism to move forward. So let me, just like you asked, let me ask if there are any questions or comments, but let's have questions first, please, if you have any. Baba Senghor, you have a question?
I yield when you said questions. I just wanted to let Mama Kibibi know that that was an awesome presentation, one of the best I've heard in a long time. Thank you so much. I also want to let her know, and everybody publicly, that the government of the UNIA-ALC RC 2020 continues to stand firm within COBRA and CARICOM and anybody doing anything to uplift African people for reparations, restorative justice. We certainly love the way you presented that is something that needs to be presented and shared everywhere. So no, Baba, I'll yield. I see some other hands up. I don't have any questions. In fact, the only thing I want to say is that Mama Kibibi, that was awesome.
Asante sana.
All right. Let me first go to Mama Tendai.
No, I yield to Brother Pumphrey and
Paul?
Baba Congo.
Okay. Okay, Brother Paul, you have it.
Yes, my question is, what is the difference between being rich and being wealthy? Because I think that's a real important distinction. Because we can talk about, for example, the Congo has $22 trillion worth of minerals, but yet the people are poor. And so one of the things I've looked at when dealing with places like the Congo is they don't have the ability, to turn their minerals, that $22 trillion worth of minerals, and be able to refine it. Then, in fact, every time they sell it, whoever they sell it to is going to make more money off the minerals because they're going to be the ones refining it. So when we talk about reparations, I think one of the things you brought up about land was that land helped people acquire wealth
Right.
without doing any work, without getting any particular salary or anything else. And so I think when we look at this movement, we really have to look at how do we set up a system that will allow us to play catch up in acquiring the wealth versus just a dollar figure, because all they have to do is increase inflation and then we're back in control of the situation and we're still losing.
Most definitely. I agree. And if I were to respond to the difference between, quote, riches and wealth, wealth appreciates. Wealth from the land, from the minerals, from the crops, whatever it is that European countries are deficient and rely on African countries for everything they need for their existence. That means that the value of our minerals, the value of our ability to grow food, the value of our water, all of those things appreciate in value. And that is why China is making a run on African countries now, because they too know that there's only so much more of any mineral, if you can find any, in their country. They must look, the world must look towards Africa. Riches, money can go through your fingers in a heartbeat, and it doesn't mean a doggone thing after you finish.
Okay, Baba Congo, you took your hand down. Is it okay now? Baba Congo?
Yes, I'm here. I have two things. If Congo, I mean, just to answer a little bit of Pumphrey's, if the Congo should own everything that Belgium has right now. Anyway, that's one. But the main thing is that the Europeans, everywhere they met Black people, they've exploited them on the continent, North and South America, but we also have to include the Pacific, from Australia, Papua New Guinea, West Papua New Guinea is still being exploited now by Indonesia, but it was the Dutch before that. I don't know if we fight to just get the United States to pay, I think we're still going to be short, because we should, all the European countries that participated in all the European countries that participated in the in colonizing, all of them should be, every one of them, we should make it a global thing to sue them, and not just United States or Portugal or whatever, to sue all of them. And I don't know if that's easier or harder to do. That's my question.
Mama Kibibi, I think he's asking about the World Court. And as you started also with the United Nations, with the stance and the definition that they have given. Some have gone, because that's one of the reasons why they took Malcolm out, going to the United Nations in terms of beseeching it and trying to get them to take, those nations to take a stand about the inhumanity that African people of descent have experienced.
That's
So
true. That's true. And I believe that the African Union is also trying to address those issues as well.
yes,
And I think that the various regions are banding together to make sure that there can be a stronger united front in order to safeguard ourselves from the rape by these African countries. We knew, as an example, that I think that there was an organization, 50 Years is Enough, where there was a concerted effort to get these outrageous debts that we are being, the interest that we are being charged by European countries when they come in and take our land and resources, and what they still want us to pay to them. Those are all the issues. I think I'm hoping that I'm answering the question.
Mama Kibibi, on the global question again, you know, I'm looking at what has happened in the history of the United States of America, wherein we have had these so-called civil rights laws, and in many cases to rectify things that happened in the time of Jim Crow, etc. And we have seen what has been done with these so-called laws, if they can be called laws, where they have engineered these things so that it does not at all rectify matters for just Africans.
Mm-hmm.
It does so for everybody else, including white women.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the world, it just came to my mind that what if, with all the calls we're having for reparation of Africans everywhere, knowing that white women have been treated badly all over the world, would it surprise anyone that white women may come up and they will change everything so that reparations will be divided between Black folks and white women?
I hope you're being
I'm
facetious.
sorry,
Bob.
but I mean,
I hope you're being facetious. We're going to dismiss that. We do know that European women have been pursued as needing different treatment than their white male counterparts. But we also know that they have been an active participant rather, in our enslavement. We know that when you start looking at the Me Too movement or whatever it is, they are frequently raised up as being the victims, when in fact they have participated to victimize. So we know that that's taking place, and we know therefore that we always have to be on guard. And once again, if anything was achieved from our being brought to these shores, it is that in these days and times, we know this opponent better than anybody else. And we must again lock arms with African descendants in the Caribbean. We must lock arms with African descendants in the UK and the EU. And we must lock arms with African people, because we are all addressing the same monster.
okay, I'm
thank
ready.
you for that.
I think, Baba, that's also what Mama Kibibi was addressing when she talked about what happened with affirmative action.
Right.
So basically, one of the things that Mama, and I'm paraphrasing you, what she is doing is saying that we must analyze anything that is put forth. So each of these bills, everything, especially when it comes to public policy, as she was saying, we have to analyze it to see who in truth is going to be the beneficiary of it. And we have to be more analytical in the process and also in what it is that we accept as reparations. Okay.
Right.
Because most of the reparations that's being offered is a Band-Aid.
Exactly.
What she's saying, the whole being must be repaired. Our psychic, our biology, which she talked about, everything else has been affected. Our relationships and the way that we communicate with one another has been impaired and affected. All of that is part of repairing us as a people for us to be restored to our original greatness. Let me just say one thing, Mama, since this is also going to be on Facebook. People talk about HR 40, but I'm not sure that everyone understands or knows what it is. So could you take a moment to explain it a little bit further? Because, you know, John Conyers died before it got to where it is now. So
the original bill submitted by Congressman John Conyers was to establish a commission to study reparations. After Congressman Conyers' death, and after Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee became the primary sponsor, the bill was updated to not establish a commission because we know what the documentation is. It has been moved forward to setting up to look at solutions, what should be included in a reparations settlement if we are able to move it forward and take a serious look at the wealth gap, a serious look at the health issues that have been addressed, a serious look at the injustices that we continually confront with the criminal justice system, a serious look at the education system and how African people in particular are not being given opportunities to access the knowledge that is needed, particularly going forward in this ever-changing technological society.
Again, Mama Kibibi, speaking on HR 40, you know, we have seen for years what has been going on with that. And all we're getting are resolutions in states supportive of HR 40 and going here and going there. And, you know, we don't have a final solution. Now I'm looking at what's going on with the World Court right now. When the United States, and I guess they're the ones who prompted it, is calling on the World Court or other. It's behind the scenes anyway, because it's not signature to the World Court. It is prompting others to put out. As a matter of fact, they have put out I don't know what you call it. Maybe they want to arrest Putin, in other words, for in this Russia-Ukraine system. And there's a warrant, I think, is what it is, to arrest any country that is a signature to arrest Putin if he lands in these countries.
Yes, for crimes.
I'm saying the way how they maneuver and do all these different things. And you have this country, the United States, that has done so much when it comes to the death of millions of children in the Middle East and even in Africa. Nobody has gone forward to the World Court for a warrant to arrest anybody here. So, should we not do this? Should we not say, listen, this has been happening all over the world. We're talking about Black people here in this country. Should we not take them to the World Court? should we not do this? I mean, or has it been done before? I know that it's been done to the United Nations. There are some people who have gone up there, including Malcolm. But coming together, locking arms, shouldn't we get together and take this thing someplace where maybe it will embarrass the United States to the point of them moving towards HR 40?
I'm not up to snuff, Barbara, on what has been taken forward to The Hague as an example to address the issue of these crimes against humanity as they pertain to African people. So I don't think that I'm qualified to answer that question, but it is certainly an important issue. We know that when we look at numerous African leaders who have been assassinated, whose governments have been deposed,
Yeah.
because they spoke out strongly against the United States or some European country or the UK. We know that those kinds of things happen, and we know that there have been people who have brought these issues before the World Court. But as you know as well, and you stated it in your comments, they continue to find ways to sidestep and to change laws when it's to their convenience.
Yeah.
But it is also very, very important, once again, that we join forces and raise our voices so that these things do not just happen and we sit quiet. You can't sit quiet while someone is oppressing you. And I think that that is what we're seeing around the world now. I'm feeling very hopeful, and I feel often in the midst of chaos that we find ourselves in now is when the greatest change is made. I know for myself, I remember us talking about the fall of this imperial country in 1960s, okay? Who knew it was gonna take 70 years to get to where we are now? There's just no way of even imagining what is really going to be the catalyst for change. What is going to be the catalyst for change? But if you continue to move forward, if every generation understands that whatever approaches that they take and whatever successes they achieve, this is an ongoing fight. Every generation is going to have to address this. Every generation must find its voice and stand up to injustice. And we must teach our children that and our grandchildren that as we move forward.
Anyone else? Any questions from anyone else?
I would say that, yes, Mama, I want to piggyback on what you were saying about every generation. We have models of how that has occurred. Folks who have gone before us, other ethnic groups, have it as an ongoing educational experience outside the formal education. So I'm giving an example. A Jewish child who has never been to Israel or whatever is still taught the history. And is taught to be responsible to Israel financially, spiritually, in every facet. And as we go on forward, it has to be us. And I think the lesson that we have learned under the Trump era, all of the little things that we thought we had gained and we got comfortable about them, in terms of, our civil liberties and things that we had gained that are being taken away day by day, that the lesson is that once we achieve what it is that we're set out to do, Mama, we must also have a plan in place to maintain it and to keep going. So we can't just achieve it and sit back on our laurels. It's going to take a continuous effort.
I agree, Mama. And spiritually, there is always a push and pull.
Yes.
That is why I say that these are matters that every generation must address because of that constant push and pull. You make 2 steps forward, you're going to meet opposition and they're going to try to pull it back the other way. So that is ongoing. But at the same time, I think Baba Ajay used to have a example that he used, and it was I think it was called a psycho spiral. We know it as what goes around comes around. And when it's going around and coming around, it is also going higher.
Mhm.
It's called the law of reciprocity. It's, yes.
So Baba Moses, first, let me just say real quickly. I love the discussion, but we got to be very realistic when we are talking about the upliftment of African people. We're talking about the fall of Yorugu, period. So we can never just expect the pressure that we put on for what is just due us through putting pressure on for external repair and reparations. We have to focus on internal reparations, internal repair, because as the elders of the UNIA taught me as I was coming up, Battle, Marcus Garvey Jr., Charles L. James, they always said, our battle for justice is internal as well as demanding everything just us externally. That is why the UNIA has always taken the position that everything we're talking about, and I'm really speaking to you too, Baba Mosi, we got to have power to go up against power, but we also have to educate our people. So if our people are not educated on really what the reparations movement has been about, we're gonna miss it, because they're gonna do everything they can to water it down, as they always do, because as we rise with internal repair, they know that we're coming of age and that we're no longer going to accept the oppression laying down. We're rising up. And this is one of the reasons why it's critical for us to connect globally. I was in the UK back in several years back when they did a massive demonstration for reparations in the UK, the United Kingdom. And one of the main things they were talking about was part of our internal reparations is for us to unite and to put on pressure, and if necessary, take back what has been taken from us and not ask for it. And I say that because that's real. That's the kind of structures we have to put in place for us going forward and for generations that follow us. So with what Mama Kibibi presented tonight, it's critical that we use as a teaching method for Africans who now are coming up into demanding for repair when they don't even know totally themselves. I'll leave it at that.
Baba Singo, if I can address one part of what you're saying,
Yes,
I appreciate your comment. However, I would like to suggest that we restrict the word reparations to those who harmed us by bringing us here. You're correct that we have the responsibility of healing ourselves internally, but the use of the word self-reparations makes me uncomfortable.
gotcha.
Internal repair, certainly. Reparations, let's restrict the use of the term reparations to European colonizers, European enslavers, and the like. But internal repair is what we have to do.
Mama Kibibi, I totally agree with you. I
Right,
totally agree with
especially
you.
with
That
us.
internal repair is the correct,
Right.
word. Internal repair. You're right. You're absolutely correct.
Mhm.
What the elders were saying to me back in the day was that if we are not repaired, if anything comes back to us that's due us, we're not going to do the right thing with. So what you just said just clarifies it better. And that's one of the reasons why it's very important for what you shared tonight to be passed on so that we can educate, continue to reinforce the education of ourselves, because we're speaking in forked tongue. And you know what I mean? So you're right. You're absolutely right. We don't want to confuse people.
And especially in these times, Baba, where we've got the younger people coming in who are not familiar with the use of the term and how things have evolved.
Right.
I think that we need to have some common terms that we put forth so that we don't confuse the issue.
Mama, if I can.
That we're speaking about sovereignty.
Yes. Yes. But I'm also thinking, saying I'm happy for the clarity, Mama, that we can all agree upon and the terminology, because I had shared the other day my concern for how, like the things that you had talked about here in terms of who all's getting on the bandwagon for reparations. And here in North Carolina right now, you know, the folks are going around and making a film going from, their plan is to go to each HBCU to talk to the students about reparations.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
you're asking for them to give you feedback when they have no clarity in terms of even what it is. And
Right,
so it can
right.
get even more confused, because I'm sure, because this is MSNBC kind of sort of behind it. And it's going to eventually come to the media. And we don't know what it's going to look like, because we also don't know what are the questions that are being asked of the youth. So I think that the clarity is extremely important.
It is, and having a historical context
Yes.
is very, very critical. People who do not know the history of this country are going to be confused about what has taken place and how we got to where we are. People who are not clear about how this country deals with Black and brown bodies are not fully capable of taking a position that is going to support us, but rather what they will do is carry the water for our oppressor. They will, excuse me, they will make the case that the country, quote, has trillions of dollars deficit, so they can't handle what is due us because it will bankrupt the country. When we know full well that this country can find money to do any and everything it wants to do. And we are saying that African people are due reparations for the era of enslavement and its continuing legacy.
On that point, Mama Kibibi, I want to make reference to a publication coming out of the Washington, D.C., the Black Reparations, American Slavery and its Vestiges, of which you were one of the contributing writers. One part of it on page 195 that I have, what we must demand of ourselves. And of course, they're speaking about the different things that have been happening and on what reparations should be, or percentages of this, that, or the other. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Despite all of this, in the final analysis, we Black people are responsible for whatever success or failure we achieve. It has nothing to do with government. It has nothing to do with the white man. Our success is based on us. Now, I don't know if you had anything to do with this, what's written here, but can you comment on that particular paragraph?
Well, I think that comes right back to what Baba Senghor and I were talking about. And that is, while our target is the US government and the history of its building wealth on the backs of African people, regardless of that, we know that even after confronting that foe, even after successfully confronting that that system that made slavery possible and that continues to create systems and institutions that deal negatively presently. Even after we finish with all of that, we know what we must do internally, no matter what. We know that strength comes from standing up to one's oppressor. Strength comes when you confront the illnesses that we are confronted with, whether those be physical or emotional. We know that those things have to be dealt with no matter what else we do as we confront these systems and institutions.
Mama, I think also just reading the paragraph kind of takes it out of context, but it sounds as though also what was being said was we have a responsibility to fight for our reparations. That it's our responsibility to do that. It's not someone else's responsibility to fight for us.
I agree.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions? Any comments?
Baba Mosey,
Yes. Yes, Dr. Kai.
good evening. And I want to also thank Mama Kibibi for an incredible presentation. In the midst of the presentation, I remember hearing a name, and I noticed that in this forum, people don't say names very often. And I don't want to do anything that is inappropriate. But the name is specifically related to a fight in DC. And it is Kenyon McDuffie. And I was very interested to hear Mama Kibibi mention his name within the context of be sure to read what is on the paper, including the very small print. Because one of the very few times I have encountered this name, not yet even this man, but this name was by people who were in his district, who could not find him, who found that, he presented very well when it was time to run, but when it was time to serve, he was running, And so whatever this is, HB 25, it is interesting how politically, convenient it is for him to say these things, whatever it is he's saying, and that he, around Juneteenth time, is going to come up with something again. And so from what little I know, I would like to support your advice that whatever it is he puts out needs to be read very carefully and very vocally. So,
Mama, I would like to say that whatever these city councils and the like do, we should be observing closely. We should take every opportunity to raise our voices and testify. One of the issues that we've had is that we don't fully understand that politics is local. Politics is local and is important to be involved in because it affects your water. It affects the utilities that you rely on. It affects whether gentrification comes in and makes it so that you can barely have enough money to even stand on a corner in DC. You must always be out front and make sure that you are raising your voices. And so Kenyon McDuffie is an at-large member. I think he does represent, he lives in Ward 5, if I'm not mistaken.
he's supposed to live in Ward 5.
But we have to hold these people accountable. We have to do that. We have to look at any legislation that they submit and understand the laws that understand the Constitution and bylaws, shall we say, of the District of Columbia. How our issue impact, or how our issue is affected by that structure. How our failure to confront and be present when testimony is provided, that we are upfront and well informed. We have to do that wherever we are. And I think that as far as it relates to AB 25, it's not going to be any different. People in elected positions are close to power and they want to stay there. And so they will do whatever is expedient in order to hold on to those positions. I'm not saying that necessarily about Councilman McDuffie, but I am saying that everyone has their reasons that will benefit them, and we must be about our business as well.
Issei, and thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Any more comments?
I would like to comment, I'm saying, I think there are some takeaways here that Mama Kibibi has provided for us. One is clarity and understanding what a definition of reparations and separating it from the work what we have to do. The other one is our collaborations, for all of us Black organizations, for us to try to work together. The other one is to make sure that we analyze information, data, laws, rules, and things that are being put in front of us so that we can understand the true implications, especially reading the small print, as she had said. And the other is recognizing that the struggle is a world struggle for people of African descent worldwide. Those are just a few of the takeaways that I was able to gather from the presentation, which was a great presentation, very succinct. There is a great deal of information and meat in the words. If you look into the words and actually digest them for all that is there. And I'm grateful, Mama Kibibi. Thank you so much for providing us with this information. We appreciate it. We join you, we salute you. We reach our hands out as well.
I'd like to suggest too that at your earliest convenience, go back and look at Raoul Peck's films. That the recent one I think he did that was released in, was it 2020 or 2021?
Yeah.
Where he shows the interconnectedness of all of this, no matter what side of the Atlantic you're on, or the Pacific you're on, how all these things mesh together and how important it is on present day life, number one. And number two, I'd like to encourage you, if you have not already done so, to purchase Nkechi Tyehimba's book, Reparations on Fire. It will provide all the information I think that you would need for how the reparations demand evolved, particularly during the 20th century, and where we find ourselves now, and all of the things that are taking place that are moving so rapidly. I think that it would be very helpful to understand that, and to understand even more succinctly how all of what we do in the US, all of what we do in the Caribbean and the UK and EU is interconnected with what takes place on the continent. I think that those things are very, very important. And I would like also, once again, to thank you all for inviting me this evening. And I hope that it can be of some benefit. I will forward you also the link to the AB 25 for Councilman McDuffie, so that we can begin to digest that and be prepared for hearings. Don't be dismayed if it does not address things as you think it should. Be prepared for the testimony. That's the important part. That's where the discussions take place, which really can begin to peel back the layers and understand what all needs to be included in whatever remedies are suggested, because we know more than anyone else how we have been harmed.
Baba, could I also ask Mama Nkechi, who is here, who's not showing her face, if she could please in the chat put in how to access her book. I have it. It's wonderful. I did a pre-order. I had mine before everybody else. And I'm in agreement that everybody should have it and read it. So Mama Nkechi, could you please put the link in where folk can buy it if they don't already have it? Thank you.
Okay, she's done that.
All right.
All right. Again, I must thank you, Mama Kibibi. But I can't let you go this early. We have a few minutes, so I just have one more thing. And you mentioned there about we must be prepared to, I guess, to what, give evidence, to be at the table. I mean, in looking forward, since there's been a revival of this great interest in reparations at this moment, and it's been international, or I should say global. But where do you see us in the near future? Do you see us really or sitting around at the negotiating table with some governmental or international reparations committee or something like that, that are really seriously thinking about bringing that forward? How does this look to you?
It can if we make it happen, Bob.
Yeah, you did say that.
If we believe that it can be achieved, it will. If we understand that you can't win a battle if you come into the battle with any pessimism, you have to believe in your capacity to make it happen. We have dealt with some atrocities for generations, and you never know what is going to make African people stand up. If you start going back to Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Amadou Diallo, Abner Louima, Sean Bell, Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. I mean, we'd be here all night naming names. We've gotten used to it, but we can't give up. We must stand strong and make this happen. We have the capacity to do it. I'm sure that no one expected us to have, and some of it is surely window dressing, but no one expected to have the issue of reparations be included on anybody's lips for the 2020 election cycle. Nobody expected that. And we don't know where it will go going forward unless we make it happen. And I believe we have the capacity to do it.
I do thank you for your optimism. And I hope we all have that same opinion, that we can do it, and soon. Well, you know, my experience is that, as Brother Senghor likes to say, Urugu does not move unless he's forced to. I'm saying he, or maybe it's they, unless they're forced to. Maybe we're gonna have to hit the streets again, because it seems like nothing happens unless you do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think right now, they're more prepared than ever to deal with us. They weren't prepared for what happened at the White House in 2020, in January. But they always prepared for us. Just can you imagine us rushing the White House or rushing the Congress demanding reparations? Would we have been treated with the kid gloves if we had gotten into Congress? I mean, this looks like this foot dragging and pussyfooting that's going on with reparations. It looks like unless there's blood, nothing will happen. Maybe I'm pessimistic, but help me to have some optimism here.
What I see, Baba Mosi, is a dying animal.
Hmm.
And when an animal is struggling for its life, it is most vicious. What we have been confronting, particularly in the last, let's say, last 3 decades, is a people coming to terms with the fact that they have a negative birth rate. A people that is scrambling around now to find African bodies and brown bodies to serve as their legs as they try to keep themselves alive for a few more decades. But the systems are crumbling. And if we understand that, and if we confront that system and make sure that our voices are heard, then we have the capacity to rise up out of this, I think. It's not going to be easy. The shenanigans that we've witnessed over the last 2 years, in particular since January 6th, have been most interesting, but it is a game. Watching them try to prop up a system that is dying is truly, truly been amazing to see. But I continue to see us moving forward. I continue to see us moving forward. I continue to see us understanding that we are not going to just sit by idly while they put chemical plants near our communities. We're not going to sit by idly while they gentrify our cities to the point where we have no places to live. And once we become homeless, then trying to take us and move us out of sight, out of mind. We must continue to confront it. We have no other choice, Bob. We don't have any other choice.
And let me say something here again. Here I go again, but let me say this. Baba, you start off all of our sessions with a pledge that came from our ancestors.
Mhm.
Okay, now they confronted the same, if not worse. And let me go back. We want to rectify. We want reparations for what happened to our ancestors in enslavement. Many of them did what? Jumped overboard. Now we have research that says for every 10 voyages, there was a rebellion on the ship. So folk didn't go down easy, they fought. When they were taken, I'm saying our people have been fighting all along. So it is our legacy and our responsibility to continue to fight. So that's why I had said the reality is we can never give up. We must continue and to go on. What I'm saying is our ancestors expected. They fought and they didn't have anything. Look at the people who were enslaved and were on plantations, and they would cut off a foot, a hand, an ear, or whatever, but they continued to fight to get liberation. Look at Angola, where, you know, they would take your child and cut your child's limbs off if you didn't meet the amount of rubber that they needed that day. Okay, but our people continue to fight and they eventually got their freedom. So we have no choice, as Mama said, but to continue the fight all the way to when we go. But we have to have also instilled that the next generation picks up where we leave off to continue to fight.
Thank you, Mama. I do agree.
There's a saying, Baba Mosi, that is erroneously attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, and that is, first they laugh at you, then they ridicule you, then they attack you, and then you win. So my question to you is, where do you think we are on that timeline?
I don't know. I mean, it's that in that situation, it's all coming at once.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on every day you're hearing about an attack somewhere. Every day you're hearing them ridiculing us for one thing or the other. They're still saying we're too lazy. They're still saying we're not qualified enough, even though we are. You know, and there's still violence against us. So we're marking time. We're in that place you're talking. You just mentioned.
But they're still coming for us for an innovation and creativity at the same time, Bob.
Yes, it's just amazing. That is the reason why I am a Garveyite, because like everything else, he has proven that we can do for self. We can be self-reliant. He proved that, and he had to be destroyed because he was proving to be too right about it all. And I think that's partly where every one of us has to be. All African people. We have to look at things universally so that we can put our hands together, hold each other, or shoulders to shoulder to confront our enemy. And we do have enemies. We do have enemies who consistently are stealing our wealth, who consistently despise us, disrespect us. You know, we have evidence here in Montgomery County, Maryland, for those who are not in the Maryland area. Montgomery County, there are several of them around the country. We have an issue with an African burial ground. And we can see how they're pussyfooting around it. It was taken to court. And this is a Democratic government in Montgomery County. So, like you're saying, we have to pay attention to what they're all doing. I think several of our politicians are irresponsible, and I'm talking about those who look like Africans, because they're all, you know, going along to get along. And it's a serious problem we have when you have people who are in charge look like us, but they're doing the bidding of those who don't look like us, but who want to actually steal our birthright. That is an issue just here in Montgomery County, Maryland, but it's happening all over the country. we do need to get together as a people and pay attention to what is happening and not allow ourselves to be bought. Because like you say, Mama, yeah, there are those who will carry the water. And hopefully we'll be doing something about it pretty soon, because a lot of us aren't very patient. The patience is running out for some of us. So yes, Mama, you appear to want to respond.
Wouldn't it be true as well that we are moving to build and to construct our own model of how we manage our own people? I'm speaking about the governing factor of being a sovereign people, being responsible for your own destiny. Yes, they owe, but that can't stop us from building and growing, repairing ourselves, and having that larger objective that Marcus Garvey put before us: the liberation of all African people worldwide.
I agree with you, my brother, but I do see them consistently putting up hurdles and stumbling blocks. And that's where we have to be strong. We have to maintain our consciousness about who we are and why we must stick together. And I hope after this, we will stick together. We will do better than what we're doing now in making this reparations issue something that is concrete and conditional on the Yurugu. It must happen. We cannot step back. We cannot mark time. We must move forward. And again, I must thank you, Mama Kibibi. I must thank also everyone who's on here this evening. I must thank Mama Tendai for co-hosting so well, because without her, I don't know, maybe someday I'll get to that point, Mama Tendai, when I can say, okay, I got it all together. And I thank you for helping out this evening. And I thank the little sister that gave me some instructions earlier before everything started on how to bring on the co-host. So on behalf of the Woodson Banneker Jackson Bay Division of the UNIA-ALC 2020, we are closing this. And Mama Kibibi, I hope we can look forward to you being with us again at some point.
Most definitely, Baba. And Asante Sana to everyone for having me this evening. And we will continue to lock arms and share information. There is also, I'd like to inform you of the National N'COBRA International Commission co-chair, Maynard Henry, is a part of the DC chapter of N'COBRA. There are some United Nations meetings taking place, I think, sometime in the month of May. And it might be a opportunity to invite him to address the group, to give you some more information than I'm able to provide on the international organizing that's taking place.
Thank you, Kibibi. You have done very well. This was a tremendously great forum. We all, I'm sure, appreciate you for coming on. And I had it in mind that, since I know you're still up and going with this N'COBRA, that you can call on some people here for whatever you're projecting for N'COBRA at this time. If you need to put out a message, that you can do that right now.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And we will, and we also have a DC in Cobra reparations listserv. I know at least Baba Senghor is a part and Mama Tendai. And so we are disseminating up-to-date information on that listserv so that you will know exactly what is taking place with the reparations movement. And so I encourage you to sign on to that and stand by for the information. These are items that I will send to you, and you can disseminate them to the UNIA and ADASI, so that you can encourage others to be a part too, so that we can be up to snuff on what needs to be done moving forward.
Thank you, Mama Kibibi.
Mama Nkechi had her hand up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't put it in the chat because on the computer I'm at, I can only put links in that I know the exact link. But on Tuesday, the last Tuesday of each month, there is a session called the Reparation Movement Monthly Meetup, RMMM. And it's an opportunity for those who are interested in learning more about the reparations movement, who want to see who's doing what across the country, put names to faces and all like that. It happens the last Tuesday of each month. And there is a link, but I can't, I can't explain. The computer that I'm doing this Zoom on, I can't do that. And then also on Thursday of next week, there is a reparation information thought series. It's the first of the thought series. And the issue is on race the weaponization of race in the reparations movement and how to combat it. And the presenters are Ajua Ayatoro, Jeffrey Robinson, who is the curator of the documentary Who We Are, Chronicle of Racism in America, Lisa Holder, who's one of the who's the new director of the Equal Justice Society in California. It's one of the commissioners on the California Reparations Task Force. And it's being co-moderated by myself and Jessica Ann Mitchell Aruwar. So I have links for both of those, but I'm not able to share it at this point. But if anyone's interested, give me your email or whatever, and I'll make sure. Or I can send it to Baba Mosi maybe, and maybe you can send it out to your list.
Certainly.
Okay. And those events are already posted on the DC in Cobra listserv. And so if once again, if you haven't joined, please do so. And those are the kinds of points that you will be receiving on a regular basis.
I thank you. Okay, that was well done. And I am pleased to say that Mama Kibibi has agreed to come back if we call on her again. And, you know, we whenever we call on Mama Nkechi, she's always willing to. And so I know you have our back, Mama Nkechi. Yep, so I thank you for being on. And Baba Congo, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yes, I just have a statement. This was a fantastic program. I'm happy everybody's here, but for all the people that's looking on Facebook, there's something that I always try to preach is that all Black people should belong to a Black liberation organization. Of course, I'd love for all of you to be Garveyites. We're looking for members, and but you know there are other positive Black organizations that you can join.
I can Cobra.
We need all that. Yeah, yes. So no, that's what I'd like everybody to do is, you know, if you don't have a chapter in your city, you know, we can arrange for you to still be a member, and also you can form chapters. We need to expand ourselves. Thank you.
you know, Baba Congo is the vice president of the Woodson Banneker Jackson Bay Division, 330 RC 2020. Thank you, Baba Congo. But you failed to mention that that we do accept contributions. We don't do that on this program, but you know, it helps. You know, we can tell you. Well, you can go to our website, UNIA Division 330.org, and see what we have there. If you know, you can make a contribution there if you would like. And so there are other means, and that should be on the website. So thank you very much, all. It's that time, and we're going to close, and I'm going to close with the motto of the UNIA-ACL, and that is one God,
God,
one aim,
One aim,
one destiny,
destiny.
one
One
destiny,
destiny.
free to land.
real land by any means.
Thank you. All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
The recording has stopped.
And I just wanted to add that the U.S. still pays reparations to the Jews, and in the history books, I don't think the U.S. had anything with the Holocaust. So why are they paying?
From what I remember reading, it's not reparations to Jews, but Jews do not have to pay any income tax on